Good afternoon, YouTube. This is Chuck, and it's Saturday early afternoon. It'll be February, not January like I said yesterday, February 10th, 2024. And as you can tell, I'm coming to you from the van, and this is going to be part two of I don't know how many part series it's going to end up being, but to talk about van life. And in this segment, I think I want to talk about senior women and their van life, or their capability of van life, or however you want to phrase it. There's a lot of them out there, and there was a ton of them at the RTR, and I think that the best way to summarize it, I think maybe, is to tell a story, a couple of stories. And this happened back at one of the earlier RTRs that I attended, and back when, before they organized it the way they do, and back when everybody all camped together and there was fewer rules and regulations, and it was kind of like a great big huge camp out, and there was probably, I don't know, I'd say maybe 3,000 people there. There was a lot of people. It was out on off of Skadden Road in Quartzsite, and there was a large gathering center part with a large central campfire, and so a lot of people would come and sit around the campfire in the evening, and that was one of the benefits of the RTR and utilizing that format is that the camaraderie that got built up around there. But anyway, let me tell you my story. It was the first RTR I went to, and it was in 2017, and I'd heard about it, and I decided I wanted to go see what it was all about. So I drove over there, and when I got there, I had no idea, there was vans and cars and every kind of vehicle you could think of everywhere. And I, of course, I'd never been there before, so I didn't know the ropes. And as I drove in the entranceway, I actually saw a YouTuber that I recognized. And so I said hi to her and asked her, what the deal was. And she said, there's no rules, there's no organization, just go find a place and park there, and set up camp. And that the main campfire ring is right over there. And so I did that. I drove down there a little ways, and I found a spot where I wasn't too close to any of the other campers. And so I pulled in there and, opened my doors up and got my chair out. And I wasn't there 5 minutes, and there, across the way from where I was parked, there was another van, and there was a lady probably in her 60s that was over there. And as soon as I got set up and sat down and started drinking a bottle of water, then she come walking over and wanted to look at my van. And, well, fine, that's great. That's one of the reasons I went, and to see what other people did and let other people see what I did. Well, anyway, her story was kind of interesting. She was from the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, and her husband had passed away, and she had kids, but they were all adults, and they were all living their own life and everything. And she discovered that she was, living in an apartment and basically sitting on the sofa and staring at the TV on the wall all day. And she just knew there had to be something more to that. And so she started watching the YouTube videos like everybody else did, and came upon cheap RV living and started researching all that. And she decided, well, for what I'm paying for this apartment, a one-bedroom apartment, nothing fancy. She didn't have a very good income stream, so basically, she's right up against the wall. Between the rent and the food and everything like that, she was dead broke at the end of the month. And so she said, there's got to be more to life than this. And so she started looking around, and she found an old van. It was only 2 years newer than mine, and she bought it and took the seats out of it and put a makeshift bed in there, and she headed west to the RTR. And this is from, like I say, the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. And so it was her first time there, and her first time actually going anywhere. But her thing was, there had to be more to life than sitting there on that couch and staring at that TV on the wall. And and that says volumes. Well, on that same trip, I don't think it was the same night. I think it might have been a couple nights later. I went down to the big group campfire, and there was a whole bunch of people there, probably 100 people circling around this big bonfire. And so I set my chair up, and pretty soon a gal came down, set her chair up next to me, and I got talking to her. And she had another interesting story. And she was from the Seattle area. And she had just recently retired as a nurse. And her backstory was that her husband had retired about 5 years ago. And she continued to work. And so after he'd been retired about 5 years, and she was tired, she was getting older and been on her feet all day and all this kind of stuff like that. And so one morning, I guess at breakfast, she told him, she said, I'm thinking about retiring. And he said, well, I'm surprised you worked this long. I thought you should have retired a long time ago. And she said, well, I thought you wanted me to keep working. And he said, I thought you were working because you wanted to keep working. Well, there's obviously a whole bunch of communication in that marriage. But anyway, so she went ahead. She said that day she turned in her paperwork, and she'd also been watching YouTube videos and cheap RV living and knew what the RTR was and all this kind of stuff. And she wanted to go traveling. Well, her husband, he had a garden, and his garden, he had a big garden, and his garden was his pride and joy. And he didn't want to go anywhere. He just wanted to stay home and take care of his garden. And so she decided, like the first lady, she said, there's got to be more to life than that. And if he doesn't want to do it, maybe I can do it myself. And like a lot of gals, something like a big motorhome or something is pretty intimidating, but they can drive a van. That's not intimidating. So what she did, I thought it was pretty interesting, is she booked a plane ticket to Las Vegas. And when she got into Las Vegas, she rented a van. Then she went down to Walmart and she bought an air mattress and a sleeping bag and just some real basic stuff. And then she drove down to Quartzsite and went to the RTR in this rented van. And she was having time of her life. She was absolutely loving it. She learned a lot. She was going to all the seminars. And the enthusiasm there was just absolutely incredible for both of those ladies, actually. And so when she got done, I asked her what she was going to do. She said, well, she's going to drive back to Las Vegas. She can go by Goodwill and all that stuff she bought at Walmart. She's just going to donate to Goodwill and then go turn the van back in and fly home. And she says then she's going to start looking for a van because she was going to go travel. If her husband didn't want to do it, she's going to go do it. So two entirely different stories from two entirely different parts of the country, but a central theme. There's a lot of senior ladies out there that are traveling by themselves. And I think the common denominator is a lot of them, once again, a big motorhome or something is a little bit more than they want to handle, but they don't need a lot. They don't have a lot of money, most of them. And the idea of driving a van and having that, being able to live in that small space, that appeals to them. They say, I can do that. And there are thousands of them out there. This last RTR that I was at, they were everywhere. Now, is it a little bit scary for a female like that, especially somebody that's that hasn't been on the road before? Well, yeah, there's a learning curve involved, and and you, like anything else, you got to learn the ropes. You got to kind of understand what you can do and what you can't, and got to get some experience under your belt, and that's where the getting tied in with somebody else that's like you. Now, the RTR, the first 3 days before the old regular RTR opens up, they have what they call the WRTR, and what that is the women's rubber tramp rendezvous. And that's strictly for gals, and that's to teach them the ropes, to teach them community, help them understand what's going on, and figure out how to survive and thrive out on the road, just like the regular RTR is for everybody, but the WRTR especially aimed at the gals. And it does a very, very valuable service, and it's quite well attended. So I guess the question is, can you do it? Yeah. So what are some thoughts? Well, like my video yesterday, try to get a van that's reliable and that's secure and something that you can go from the back to the front and drive away if you start getting nervous about your surroundings. I can't overstress how important that is. And the other thing too is, I guess females have a little bit more need for community maybe than a lot of us guys do. Or maybe we're just fooling ourselves because we're bullheaded. But at any rate, what a lot of them do is a lot of them will get together in small groups, anywhere from 2 to half a dozen of them. And everybody's got their own van, so they're not sleeping in the same van with somebody else, and they just it's like their own room. but it's like they kind of live in an apartment complex, but all the rooms have wheels, and they all kind of travel together. And sometimes somebody will take off and go visit family or go be off by themselves for a while. And social media allows them to connect with each other, and so there's quite a sense of community out there of people that kind of know where the other ones are all the time, and if they decide to connect back with them and travel with them for 2 weeks, a month, whatever, all winter, they can do that. And is it a viable alternative? Yes, it is. Are there pitfalls? Oh yeah. There's obviously being away from family if you've got family, and the not being there for the kids' birthdays and all this kind of stuff. And one of the things for me that I think is a big deal, and that's health care, especially if there's some of these gals that are just living on Social Security, and they're one medical emergency away from not being able to do anything, and but there's some of them also that that do have health insurance when they travel, but the issue, of course, is wherever you are, you're not going to be home, and you're not going to be somewhere where the doctor, and you're not going to be somewhere where the hospital might be close, and so you just have to kind of live with that. And certain people with certain medical conditions, you're not going to want to do that. Now, can you still get out and do it part-time? Oh yeah, I think you could. But as far as just taking off and going wherever your nose leads you, can it be done by senior females? You bet it can, and there's thousands of them out there doing it. Every problem can be addressed. Vehicles break down every day, and new ones break down, old ones break down, old ones maybe break down more often. But y'all hear the stories about somebody that drove brand new one off the lot, and 3 days later it was back for something. So any vehicle can break down. You learn to roll with the punches. You learn not to get too excited about diversity. You learn to deal with the weather. I mentioned the weather in my last video because that's probably the number one hazard out there. You need to be able to be warm enough, and you need to be able to be cool enough. And most of the time, being cool enough just ends up meaning relocating to someplace at a higher elevation. But there'd be times that you'll be someplace and there's uncharacteristically hot, and so you need to know how to deal with that. But cold is probably the worst, and so you need to just be able to have the necessary stuff to deal with the cold. As I said in my last video, you don't need anything real fancy to try it out. Back in, maybe a little bit off topic, but back when I first retired in 1998, we had a 40-foot fifth wheel, and we decided we were going to go see if we wanted to be full-time RVers. And so we took off on what we called the big trip. But one thing we didn't do is we didn't sell our house. And a lot of people do that. And the problem, of course, with that is you can never go back. So we just shut our house down and kept it. And yeah, we ended up, after being out about a month, we decided we weren't quite ready to be full-time RVers yet. And we ended up being back here and back home again, and we're still in the same house. But a lot of people, when they decide to make that jump, they sell the house, they go off in an RV, and they don't like it. And the same could happen with a van. So it's, most of the time with a van, if you're careful how you do it, there's nobody holding a gun to your head and telling you once you make that decision, you have to keep that decision, that you can't go back. But sometimes going back might be a little harder than you might think it is. But I guess the initial question when I started this video is it possible? Should a senior female be afraid to do this? And the answer to that is no. Just learn everything you can about it. Understand that everything's not going to go according to the way you think it should every single day, and you got to learn to roll with the punches, and you got to be flexible. Spontaneity to me is one of the best things about traveling around the van is, not having an absolute schedule where you got to be A to B, and if you want to stop and go look at something, you can do it. And if you see a nice camping spot, you can go spend a couple days there. I like that. My wife not so much. When we're in our trailer, we tend to be a little bit more A to B on stuff like that. I'm trying to train her to do that. She's kind of set in her ways, kind of like I'm set in my ways. But I probably rambled on far enough on this video. So as I always tell you, take care of each other and love each other. Take care of your own mental well-being. It's pretty important. You know, we all have stressful things happen in our lives, and life isn't always bed of roses. So, with that, I think I'll let you go, and I'll tell you peace out for now. And let me, as I always say, let me go find the button. We'll catch you next time.